Hey everyone, welcome back to another very exciting Adobe Live. I am your host, Jesús Ramirez, and today we're going to be doing a Firefly masterclass in Photoshop. What does that mean? It means that we're going to learn a lot about generative fill inside of Photoshop, and we're going to step into the Firefly website as well. I see some familiar faces in the chat. Hey, Cody Bear, how's it going? William Braggs, thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm tuning in from the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area in Morgan Hill, California, south of San Jose. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here today. There's a lot to talk about. You guys know that I get super excited with Photoshop, and I always have a ton of tips and tricks that I like to share. Hopefully, a lot of them are new to you, and you can use them in your workflow. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. I'm going to be checking the chat every now and again just to see what the questions are. But yeah, just drop them in and I'll answer them as soon as I can. So let's jump right onto my screen here. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to show you something in the Firefly website. And the reason that I'm going to do that is so that you can see how it works, because I think it's better laid out in the Firefly website. And then we're going to move on to Photoshop so that you can see how that works in Photoshop. It's a little more confusing in Photoshop. So you'll see what I mean in a moment. So I'm going to go to firefly.adobe.com. And from here, I'm going to go down to this box that reads text to image, this module here. And it allows you to generate an image based on text. So I'm just going to type in any prompt that I want to generate an image. So I'm going to type in modern living room with a fireplace. I don't know what I misspelled here, so let me just right click, and it wants me to title case it for some reason. That's fine. Modern living room with a fireplace. And yeah, this is the one thing about GenFill. I'm like a horrible speller. That's why I became an artist. Now I have to know how to spell everything, but here we are. Modern living room with a fireplace. And I'm going to click on generate. So Firefly is going to generate 4 variations of this prompt. And I can change the content type. I would like to have a photo, and I would also like to make this a 16:9 aspect ratio. The reason that I make everything 16:9 is that it gives you the most amount of pixels out of any generation. And then if I want to, I can crop it later. So I just feel it gives me more flexibility in that regard. So I'm going to click on generate again. And we'll get 4 more variations of a modern living room with a fireplace. And we'll just give it a second here. Good to see you too, Marsha. Thank you for the comment. RB, hey, how's it going? Patrick, good to see you in the chat. So here we go. We have these variations of the modern living room with a fireplace. We have fireplaces in the middle, fireplaces on the right, fireplaces on the left, and we have these big windows. So what I can do now is click on this edit button and go to the use as reference image options. Use reference image. What that will do is that will generate 4 other living rooms with a fireplace. And in theory, they should all have a fireplace right about the middle, no longer on the left, or the right, anywhere else in the image, in the middle, because it's referencing that particular image. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. When you click on the thumbnail, you'll notice this reference image slider and prompt. So the closer I drag this over to the left, the more it will reference the image. So if I drag it all the way to the left and click on refresh, we're basically going to get a really fuzzy image, because Firefly is going to try to generate a modern living room with a fireplace on top of the modern living room it generated originally. So it's just making very subtle adjustments, basically no adjustments, and it just looks really fuzzy. So usually you don't want to go that far to the left. If I move this all the way to the right, now it's going to look at the prompt completely and ignore the reference image. So when I click on refresh, you will get a modern living room, but the fireplace may not be in the center. It could be anywhere. So let's see what happens here. So now you can see that the fireplace is no longer in the center, and it's in different places. And the layout of the living room is different. We don't have those 2 couches that were leading towards the middle. So if we want to get a balance between the reference image and the prompt, you can just click on refresh when the slider's in the middle, and you'll get variations that are very similar to the reference image, because it's weighing both the reference image and the prompt equally. Now, what if we change the prompt? Instead of modern living room, if we change it to Victorian living room with a fireplace, and that one does need a capital letter, Victorian living room with a fireplace, and click on generate. And by the way, punctuation is really not that important in Firefly, so I don't even know why I'm correcting the words. I just don't like seeing the squiggly lines. The point is that once you add this new prompt, Firefly is using the reference image and the prompt just about equal in this case. So we get a fireplace in the center with very similar couches leading to that fireplace in the middle. See that? So this is what I wanted you to understand, the intensity, or how Firefly weighs the reference image is based on the intensity that we apply. You can say that prompt is 100% and reference image is 0%, and the middle here is about 50%. So this is the important thing that I want you to keep in mind, because we're going to try to do the same thing, but inside of Photoshop. So when we go into Photoshop, let me just bring up Photoshop here. We have this empty canvas. And I think you might have seen an example that I made with a fish in previous streams, where we have this ocean scene and we wanted to add a fish into it. So I can come in here and make a selection and then just type the word fish, nothing else, just generate fish. That will generate a fish, but it might not look like it's really deep in the water. It might look almost like a sticker, like on top of this image. I'm not sure what Photoshop will generate this time, but from trying it out, you'll see that, you know, it doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty good, but it doesn't look like it's really in there. It doesn't look like it's really deep in the water. So what I can now do is make a selection, and I'll fill this selection with, now that I made the selection, I can press the Q key to enter the quick mask mode. So once again, that was the Q key. Anything in red is not selected, and anything that has the original colors is selected at 100% intensity. What I want to do now is reduce that intensity of this selection. So remember, black hides, white reveals. Anything that is completely hidden is in theory painted by black, but is represented as red here. So what I can do now is fill with my background color, which is black, Alt and Backspace on Windows, Option Delete on the Mac. Now I can press Control Shift F on Windows, Command Shift F on the Mac, and I can bring up the fade window, and I can reduce the intensity of that fill. So now I can leave it at about 50%. So this is very similar to that slider we were looking at, because I want to keep some of my reference image. I want those sun rays to come through and maybe make it seem like the fish is deeper in the water. So I'll press OK, and then I'll press the Q key again. Photoshop is telling me that pixels that are not selected more than 50% will not be visible. That just means that the selection is there, but it's hidden. We can't see it because the pixels are hidden at 50% or lower, which is the case here. So I'll press OK. I can click on Generator Fill, and once again, I will press Fish, and hopefully this time we'll get fish that seem like they're deeper in the water. Let me see if there's any questions, but this thing's, well, Firefly loads or Photoshop. There we go. So, but we have a shark now. It's not really I guess a shark is a fish, but we have different fish that look like they're deeper in the water, and you can see how they're now being affected by those sun rays, because we use that quote unquote intensity command. So that you can compare, you can see the difference. Here's the original generation, and here's the after. It just creates the illusion that the fish is deeper in the water. So that's one of the ways in which you can use the intensity command. Now let's look at a different way that you can use it. So we're going to do a little bit of a mock-up, maybe a storyboard type of thing. And we have just a blank canvas here. There's nothing in it, as you can see, completely blank. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back onto my browser here, but instead of going into Firefly, and you can use Firefly generated images if you want, I just want to show you an alternative. But instead of going into Firefly, I'm going to go into stock.adobe.com. And from here on the dropdown, you can select free, and you'll get, I don't know, thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, I don't know, free images, graphics, and videos. And what I'm going to type here is, I'm just going to type wooden table. I'm going to type a wooden table. So I mean, there's a lot of good ones here, so I don't know which one I want to use. Just to make things more interesting, I'm just going to use, let me see. I don't want to use actually a table. I want to use more of a texture. All right, I'm just going to use the first texture I see. There you go. We're going to use this one. So this texture right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to license it. It's free. And once you license it, it's going to give you two options to go into your default library or save it and save it into your desktop. I don't want to save it into my desktop because it's already saved to my library. So I'm going to go back into Photoshop, open up my libraries panel, and you can see the wooden panel texture that we got here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this wooden panel here, and I'm going to press Control T on Windows, Command T on the Mac to transform. And I'm going to stretch this out. So I'm going to stretch it out so that it fills the entire canvas. And then I'm going to distort it a little bit so that we get some perspective here. And actually what I'll do is I'll drag this one up here first, and then I will use the perspective command just to give it some perspective. And what I'm doing here is I'm just mocking up a scene. So I'm going to mock up a scene here for you guys. And once again, I'll go into the distort so I can drag this down. So you can imagine that this is our tabletop. And now we need a background. So what I have in mind here is creating a product shot of, you know, maybe like a breakfast scene with like a nice, beautiful vineyard in the background, breakfast, orange juice glass or something like that. So let's do that. So now I'm just going to type vineyard morning, just because I want it to be in the morning time. And of course I misspelled morning. So let me fix that up. Morning. And I want a photo. So there we go. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time searching for the perfect photo, but I do want to get something that is close to what I have in mind. And in this case, I'm not too happy with anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with the first one I see that kind of works. So the first one I see that kind of works. Well, I'm not happy with any of them. I'm just going to type in vineyard and see if there's something that kind of works with the background I have in mind. And then if it doesn't work, we'll worry about it. We'll worry about it later. We'll do this one. This one kind of works. Why not? And actually, you know what? It doesn't work because I want something that has a bright sun on the side. And there was one up here, so I'll just use that one, not to waste your time. This one here, and I'll just get rid of those balloons later. So there you go. This is my vineyard, morning time. It's got a bright sun. I don't necessarily like those balloons there, but that's fine. I'll just license it for free. And again, it's going to go into my default library, and it's going to download the image to my computer, or attempt to download the image. I don't need to download it since it's in my library. I see a question. Is it kind of like an opacity? Not necessarily an opacity. It was more like when I showed you on the Firefly website, when you drag that slider, the prompt is either use 100% or like 0%. So somewhere in between. So what is Photoshop referencing? Is it referencing the prompt more? Is it referencing the image behind it more? Or a combination? So that's really more of what it is. And Jose, good to see you. Shuvu, good to see you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. So now that we have this vineyard here with the balloons, I'm going to drag this down and I'm going to scale this up. And you know what? I would like the light to come from the right side. So I'm going to flip this horizontally, and I'm just going to drag this over like so. So this is going to be our morning scene. There we go. I don't necessarily like these balloons. Let me rasterize the layer first, and I'll move it down. And with the remove tool, I'm going to remove these balloons. So now you might be wondering, why am I using the remove tool instead of generative fill? Well, the remove tool doesn't waste any generative fill credits. So that will make it so that when, I believe November 1st, if I'm not mistaken, is when you'll have a limit of fast generations. After that limit, you'll get slower generations. I just don't want to waste my fast generations on something that I really don't need to use generative fill for. So I use the remove tool. By the way, the remove tool has a new feature which is when you select the remove tool, here it is, remove tool, you can just make a selection around the object you want to remove, like so, just a circle around it. When you complete that, that tracing around the object, you can release, and Photoshop will fill in the middle and then remove the object. So now I removed the balloons that I didn't really want in my scene there. So now I can move this up, and I can go into filter, blur gallery, and I'll just do a field blur. I don't think I can get any light bokeh here. Nope, I can't. But you know, if I adjust these sliders somehow, I can make it so that I can get some cool bokeh if I blur it more, but it's not really working, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just make sure that I have just a blurry background like so. Maybe that's too blurry. We'll call that good. I'll press OK, and there we go. We now have a blurry background, and we have our table. Now let's start setting the table. So I'm going to set the table with, I don't know, maybe I don't know. Breakfast time is breakfast here in California. So we'll do, I don't know, like egg and potato. Breakfast bowl. There we go. Okay, so now let's find a bowl that's more or less in that perspective. None of this really works. So what I'll do is I'll just type in breakfast bowl and see what we get. There we go, breakfast bowl. Actually, I kind of do like that one now that I said I didn't like it, but all right, we'll go with that one. That's fine. We'll go with this. Actually, this one's not too bad either. But it doesn't really matter. We're going to use it as a reference image. So the contents really don't matter. So we'll make it a little harder on ourselves, and we'll use this one because then that means we have to like fill in the missing pieces. So we'll just click on license image here. So we'll imagine that this is the perfect bowl that we want to use for our example, and then we have to fill in the missing pieces. So here we go. Here's our breakfast bowl. I'm going to drag that in here, and I'm going to scale it up, maybe about that big. Here's a trick for you. Whoops, that was way too big. Let me undo that. Here's the trick for you. Let me just delete this because it is, I'm not really sure why. There we go. I didn't want the bar there at the bottom. Let me just delete that image and drag it back in. There we go. And what I'm going to do is just mask this out. So I'm going to click on remove background. We'll see. Didn't do that good of a job. So if it doesn't do that good of a job, what you can do is go into the object selection tool here. Under mode, select lasso and just lasso this guy out like so. And I think this will do a better job. Okay, not much better. So when all else fails, we have to go to the old school tools like the quick selection tool, and this will definitely do a better job. There you go. Sometimes the older tools work a little better instead of those AI tools. See, AI is not replacing you just yet. So with that selection active, I'm just going to generate, or I'm sorry, not generate. I'm going to create a mask, and I'm going to bring this down. So the bowl is not complete. So I can just use Gen Fill to complete the bowl. It's funny because we're using Gen Fill to like complete Gen Fill, and then we're going to use Gen Fill on top of this to do something else. But that's right. That's the breakfast of champions, Carol. I like that. Wine and cheese for breakfast. Why not? There we go. That looks much better. And then what I'll do is I'll just quickly, smooth out my edge here. That was way too smooth. And actually, instead of smoothing it out, I think I need to bring some of it back. There we go. That's what I needed to do. Here, by the way, here's a trick for you. If you click and hold shift and click again, you'll draw a straight line between 2 points. So click, hold shift, click again, and it just draws a straight line. So a lot of times that's what I do to like quickly create a straight edge. Anyway, so there you go. That's my bowl. And you know what? This is a little too high, and this is going to really mess up the Gen Fill, but that's okay. I'm going to bring it down And what I'll do now is paint with black on the layer mask there so I can hide the edges. And again, this doesn't need to be perfect. This is more of a draft, more of a sketch, more of, we want Photoshop to generate like a beautiful photo using like this really crappy composite. So I'm going to create a shadow underneath. Actually, I'll wait for the shadow for later. What I'm going to do now, just not to waste any more time, I'm just going to go for like a glass of OJ. So orange juice glass. And let's see what looks good here. This one might work. We'll just use this one. It's got a straw. I kind of like that. We'll save it to, actually, no, we'll license it. And we'll go into Photoshop, go back into the libraries panel, and we'll wait for it to load. Is it not loading? Is it not coming? What's going on? There we go. There it is. Then I can drag this down, and I'll try doing remove background, see if it works. Did a really good job this time. It missed one piece here, but I can just make a selection with the lasso tool and fill with black, which is my background colors. So control and backspace to delete. And then I can place this and put it, oh, there's a leaf there too that I miss. So there's that leaf and fill with black. So now I can just scale this down. So I'm going to scale it down and try to make it fit in the scene. This is a reference point. I'm going to move the reference point below the cup. And now if I hold Alt and Shift, it'll scale from that point, which is what I want. Maybe a little lower. There we go. We're going to pretend that this is the most beautiful product shot in history. And if it were, it will have better shadows. And by the way, I forgot to close this, which is why I got that bar there at the bottom. Anyway, so above the table, I'm just going to just create a couple of shadows because I also want some shadows in my final product scene here. So there's a shadow and there's a shadow, and I can just reduce the intensity just because I want those shadows to appear. So there you go, breakfast time. And what I can do now is use this as a reference so that Photoshop can generate an image for me. So at the topmost layer here, I'm going to just press the Q key. Notice that the layer turns red. That means that we're in the quick mask mode. And in the quick mask mode, we can reduce the intensity of anything we fill like we did earlier. So I'm going to fill the entire canvas with black. Alt and backspace on Windows, Option Delete on the Mac. Remember, when something shows red in the quick mask, it means that it's not selected. It means that it's black in the mask. Then you can press Control Shift F for fade, Command Shift F for fade on the Mac. And then we can fade this down. So we can bring this down to, say, 40%. So now, remember, 0% is whatever the prompt is, whatever prompt we type in. 100% is the image that we're using, almost like that slider we were looking at in Firefly earlier. So I'm just going to go to like about 40% and press OK. So now I have my selection, and I can press Q again to exit the quick mask mode. Notice that the layer is no longer red. And what I'm going to do now, just so that you can see what happens, I'm just going to go into generator fill, and I'm just going to generate. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to generate. Later on, you'll see how we can improve on this, but we're generating. Shadows are never black. No, they're not. But this is what do you call it? A storyboard like sketch. So yeah, definitely doesn't matter in this case. But that's the whole point, that you don't have to be perfect with anything, that Firefly should help us to generate a realistic looking image. We'll see how well it does. Is it just me, or is it like going super slow here at the end? It generated pretty quickly, and there we go. Well, not a table, but you can see that Firefly generated something that looks not terrible. I mean, it kept the plate in the same position and kept the cup in the same position and all of that. So what I'm going to do now is now give it a prompt to see how it does with the prompt rather than just letting it do what it wants. So now it's going to use the reference image and whatever I typed in. So let's see what it does. I'm going to go, and now I'm going to type hyper realistic. By the way, before I type the prompt, I got to show you guys something. If you go into the Firefly website, look at all the different styles and colors and tones and all of that you can select here. Now, what's happening behind the scenes when you select, for example, like white angle or something, you don't really see it in the prompt, but it's really in the prompt, like in the background. Whatever Firefly sends up to the cloud to compute the generation, it'll see this as a prompt. So these are clues that you can use to generate your prompts in Photoshop. So if you like something, for example, like golden hour, you can definitely type it in the prompt. It's something that will recognize. I use the word hyper realistic, which is somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but I know it's in here somewhere. So you can come in and look at these options that you can use, for example, beautiful, and just add it to your prompts in Photoshop. So hyper realistic, product photo of an egg. What was this? Not this was an egg. We'll just call it out. We'll just say egg and potatoes, which is what I typed in earlier that I didn't like. Egg and potato breakfast bowl with a glass of orange juice on a wooden table in front of a vineyard on a warm golden hour, which is the one of the options that you could select in Firefly. Golden hour morning and bright sun flare with a blurry background, which is another option that you could select on the Firefly website. And then I'll click on generate. So theoretically, this will give us a much better result. We'll see if it happens. Can I do this on Photoshop for the web? You know what? I'm going to look that up, Marsha. I'm not 100% sure if Photoshop for the web has the quick mask mode. So I'm not really sure. But there you go. So now we get something that looks more like the idea that I had in mind. So that was the sketch, and this is the idea. And now, obviously, maybe that's not the type of egg that we want. Maybe that's not the right type of glass. But you can keep generating until you get something that looks good. I can hit generate once again and see if we get a better result. If this doesn't work, I can try to generate something else using a different keyword. But the point is that we were able to use stock images, lay them out, very simply in Photoshop, and then just have GenFill create the final product for us. And also, you don't have to wait for like the best possible product. So we'll just assume that this is like the perfect, happy product and, product shot. We're super happy with it. But then there's this, orange juice here in the background that we don't like. Well, you can just always make a selection, click on generator fill, click on generate again. Don't put anything in the prompt, and it should help us remove it. We'll see. Are those eggs for ants? And there we go. This one doesn't have anything there. And again, if we don't like it, we can keep generating those specific areas until we get something that works for us. But the point is that you can use the intensity command in Firefly along with anything underneath to generate something. Also, I don't know. I think I like that one. So we'll keep that. So there you go. That's our final product shot based on a very simple composite that we made in Photoshop using just images without really masking, making really bad shadows, and just putting a few images together. We were able to create a photo that looks pretty convincing. And you can also do this with, if you wanted to paint something, you can. I guess you can kind of do it. So you can, if you have, I don't know, like mountains in the background. And here are my mountains. This is really terrible, by the way. Actually, I'm not happy with the way I'm drawing that. So let me start over again. What I'm going to do first is change the hardness to 100. And I'll just start with my horizon line. There's my horizon line. My mountains will be here. These are my mountains there. And I'm just going to make a larger brush and fill. I guess I could have also used the paint bucket, which I never really used. Do you guys ever use the paint bucket? Tool, the paint bucket tool. But anyway, so I'm painting my mountains. Here we go. These are my mountains. And then I'm going to create this green here at the bottom. And you know what? Maybe there's like a river or something going through here. I don't know. Here we go. We have this river, body of water going here. Actually, that might be too big, but that's okay. I'll fix it later. What I'll actually, never mind. I'll create it in a new layer. That way I don't necessarily. There we go. Sort of little body of water coming here. There we go. And then we need a sky. So I'll just use that baby blue. And then we'll just add the sun like up here somewhere. And maybe I'll blur that just to create the illusion of like light. There we go. So we'll see what that gives us. So I'll make a selection. I'll press the Q key to enter the quick mask mode, fill with black, Control Shift F to enter the fade command, and I can reduce this down. And I don't know, we'll just make it, we'll start with 40%. Sometimes you have to experiment. I'll press OK. I'll press the Q key again. I'll click on Generative Fill, and I'll type in beautiful photo of a mountain range with a river and a bright sun on the right in a golden hour afternoon. We'll see if this works. And then I can click on generate. So theoretically, we should get something that matches the reference image here with the description. Marcy still uses the paint bucket tool. Awesome. Yeah, that's one that I rarely use. And there you go. Look at that. I mean, not bad considering it was just like a really bad sketch, and it created something that looks, fairly convincing. And if I were to start experimenting with the intensities, I can definitely get better results. But again, making a photo just using that reference image is not bad. And what you can do at this point is maybe start adjusting it with more gen fill. So I can come in here and I can just make a selection around this river. We can pretend that everything is great except for the river. I can click on generative fill and just say something like rocky river with reflective water. So it's no longer using that original image. It's now using the prompt. So we'll see if we can get something that works. And there you go. See, now this is starting to look more realistic with the reflections and all of that. But still, I'm going to put this into a group, by the way. So, but still, it's still referencing that original image. So see how we can create something like super realistic. And if we don't like the mountains, maybe we like this side, but we don't like this side. This is probably not going to be realistic at all. But what I'm going to do now is just select these mountains here, and then just type mountains with snow on the top, and then hit generate. And now hopefully we'll get a mountain with snow on the top. And oh, this one has a little. Oh, cool. I don't know. I'll go with this one. I don't necessarily like what's up here, but that's okay. All I need to do here is go into the mask and paint with black on that area, and I should be able. Oh no, that's the original. So paint with white, and then there you go, paint with white. But Photoshop didn't really generate anything there because I made a bad selection. So what I can do now is, on top of that, I can just use the remove tool, sample all layers, this box here, and I can just paint that away, and there we go. So now we have something that looks more realistic to a degree. But as you can see, when you start playing with intensity and the opacity command, you can really start creating some really cool things with generative fill. I think that the key is that you have to create very descriptive prompts alongside the appropriate intensity so that you can get something that looks good. Otherwise, if you just leave it blank, you might not get what you want. So it's always a good idea to be specific. And then when you get something that's almost there, like I did here with the river, you, because that was the original, not very good. But then when we start, creating specific selections for areas that are not that good, we can get something that looks really, really good. I use rocky river with reflective water, but if we wrote something like with rough, fast water, hopefully we get something that seems like the water is going faster. I don't know. Let's give it a try. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. What would have happened if I didn't give it a prompt? I don't know. Let's give it a try. It probably wouldn't be as good, but we'll give it a try. After this river regenerates, we'll give it a try and see what it does. Great question, Marcia. Okay, so I'll answer your question in a second, but now you can see that we have fast water now. So that may be what you want, may not be. Again, you have endless opportunities to change this as much as you want. So the question was, if the original image was black and white, would this work well? So the short answer is yes, it will work. For some reason, it sometimes gives it color. It doesn't necessarily make a black and white image into color, but it will create an image that's maybe like duotone, or maybe like for whatever reason, the grass is green, but everything else is black and white. So it doesn't always do completely black and white images. Omar is asking, what about other languages? The generative fill in Firefly works with over 100 languages. So odds are that a language that you speak could be used with generative fill and Firefly. Let me see. There you go. I misspelled mountains. Not surprising. But yeah, pretty good. Yeah, I did misspell mountains. There you go. Mountains. Thank you so much for letting me know I misspelled mountains. But yeah, as you can see, spelling, sometimes it can be okay if you misspell something. Other times you have to be exact with what you spell. Cool. I'll change my bad drawings into masterpiece. That's right. Let me see how much more time we have. There's one thing I said that I was going to show, which is what would happen if I didn't type anything in. So I'll do the same thing. I'll press Q. I'll fill with black. Control Shift F and bring the opacity to, what did I leave it at? Was it 40%? I think it was 40%. I press OK, press the Q key again. Now in generative fill, I will put in mountains. Oh man, I wanted to keep the same prompt. You know what I'll do? I'll just leave it complete. No, actually, I do need a prompt. Mountains with river and a sunny, actually not sunny, in a warm golden. You know what? Instead of trying to guess what I said before, what you can do is go back into your prompts here and you can copy the prompt. So there you go. I'm going to copy the prompt here and I'll use the same prompt. So once again, Q, fill with black, Control Shift F, and bring it to about 40%. Press OK. Press Q again to exit the quick mask mode, generative fill, and paste that prompt. And actually, was the question no prompt? Let me see. I want to make sure that if I didn't give it a prompt, yeah. Sorry about that. I'm like doing more work than I expected. There you go. So I'm not going to give it a prompt. Sorry about that, Rick. I think that was your question. Yeah, no prompt. So let's see what happens. It could be anything really. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. There you go. So not necessarily a mountain range. Oh, look, I mean, it's essentially the drawing I had. So there you go. No prompt. It made it into like a walkway, a blue path on a park. This is basically my drawing, and another blue path, water on a park. So there you go. So this is why it's good to give it a prompt so that it knows what you want. But yeah. Also, something else that I didn't mention that I should have shown before is selections matter. So when you create a selection, for example, earlier we were working, and I guess I can use one of these graphics here. We can use this one. Like for example, if I come here and I just say fork, we'll see. Actually, that probably wouldn't work as a fork, but selections do matter. Just make a selection like so, and I type the word fork. Click on generate. Who knows what this will look like, but we'll see. Hopefully it looks good. There you go. That's a fork. You know, not necessarily that great. But if I come in here and I start, you know, drawing a fork, and I know this is not like the best fork in the world, but that's okay. It hopefully illustrates the point. I can type in the word fork, click on generate, and now we should get a fork that fits within that shape. So we'll see if it does it. Oh my God, it didn't do a fork at all. That's so funny. Let me click generate one more time. Every other time I try this with a fork, it works. And watch it not work this time again. Yeah, it doesn't like the fork. Let me draw a different fork. Maybe it didn't like the way that I drew it. So theoretically speaking, this should work. And I'm glad it's not working now because this is part of one of my demos at Adobe Max. So drawing a fork. So I got to figure out why it's not working. Anybody in the chat going to Adobe Max next week? Yeah, doesn't like a fork for some reason. There we go. So let me try it in a different photo. I don't know why that's not working, but it should work. Here, we'll just try like a I don't know, it's probably not a good photo. Now I want to make it work in front of you guys. Do I have more food here, more plates? Guess I don't have. All right. You know what? I think I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this image smaller first, and we're going to use Firefly to get us a larger image because I think that'll work. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. So Firefly, generative expand, generate, and we just need more, I assume. I don't know. Marcia says, I only exist virtually. What if you were like an advanced AI and none of us knew? Oh, look, there's a fork. That's not the fork we wanted, though. Oh, there's forks on all of these. What the heck, man? So there's a fork. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this into just a regular image there, flatten layer, and I'm just going to use a remove tool to remove this. I don't care if it looks good or not. It looks fabulous. And the example I was trying to show is if we do something like this, and then we just type in the word fork, it'll give us a fork in any number of ways. It could be facing up, down, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of spikes. I don't know. But, you know, in this case, 3, 3, 3. Okay, 3 on all of these. Oh, was that 4? Yeah, that was 4. This is I can't really tell if that's 1 or not. But the point is that if you come in here and you draw it, you should be able, I'm going to do 4 now, should be able to get something that looks like what you drew. And hopefully this works. If not, I'm going to be really unhappy. Oh, Mariana, that's a good point. I don't know what the layer stacking was like, but yes, the layer stack needs. There we go. At least it did one out of all the others. The point is that the shape of the object or your selection should affect the shape of the outcome. Yeah, just not going to work for me. So I'm just, after this generation, I'm going to give up and move on to the next thing because we have about 10 minutes and there's more stuff I want to show you guys. Again, it feels like the last couple, like 20% or whatever for the generations, it seems a lot slower. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. What do you guys think? Tiny fork. That's right. Oh my God. Now it's going to make me wait for like that last 1%. Yeah. I don't think Firefly likes forks anymore. Oh, look at that. Still waiting for that 1% there. That tiny little bit. Oh man, the suspense is killing me now. I don't know. I don't know what it is, Marcy. I don't know if a lot of people are using it or not, and that's why it slows down. There we go. All right, doesn't like my fork. Never mind. Scratch that. We're gonna move to something else. But trust me, the selection does matter. Um, let's go look at another example. So, we just saw how generative expand works, right? Like you have an image, and let me make this image smaller. I think it's small. Yeah, it's small. Generative expand simply allows you to take, the crop tool and then like make it larger. And then with generative expand selected, you can just click on commit changes and Photoshop will fill in the extra space with the generated pixels, right? Like we all know it, that's how you would turn a vertical photo into horizontal. Like I think everyone probably knows that. And there you go. Look at that. We expanded it out. That's what it looks. Beautiful. All right. So what happens if we want to do the other thing where we want to take something and make it into a portrait shot, vertical shot like that? Well, now we lose the Eiffel Tower, right? Because the Eiffel Tower is not, it just doesn't fit. How can we make it fit? Well, one thing we could do that definitely wouldn't work is we can of course try to scale this in and then try to fit it in, but then that wouldn't work because now everything's squished, right? So what we can do instead is take the lasso tool, make a selection out of the important items. You don't have to be very precise. You can just go in here and make your selection like so, and then you can press Control J to duplicate that layer. So now we have that in its own layer. And now I can use the crop tool again and put it right about here. The Eiffel Tower is no longer there, but look at this. We can still bring it in because we have it on a separate layer. Yay. So I can put that there. But now we have this ugly seam, but we can use generative fill to fix it. I can select the lasso tool again, and I'm just going to select the tower. And I'm going to select a lot of the water here in this area like so. There we go. And I'm going to click on generative fill. I'm going to leave it blank and click on generate. And look at that. The seam is removed and we have a vertical photo that looks pretty good that doesn't have the seam, but it has the important things. The Eiffel Tower and this girl in the red dress looking at the tower. And of course, you can click through the variations to see if there's one that you like better. In my case, I think I like, let's see. I like a combination of these, but overall, I think I like that one best. It's between these two for me, but either work fine. So the point is that you can use the generative fill to combine and merge images, and you can also use generative fill to combine and merge the same image, but change the aspect ratio. Steve wrote, ooh la la, definitely. It works great. And also in this case, what I probably would do is I would do that twice. I'm going to duplicate that original layer again, press Control J, and then move it into the scene because I would like to get some of these trees here. So I kind of like how the trees were on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm probably going to rotate it and, do something like that. And then with the lasso tool, I'm going to lasso this top part there and create a mask. There we go. And then again, with generative fill, I'm going to go to the top here, like so. And I'm just going to generate this part here to remove the seam. Seamless, that's right. Marcia, thank you for the comment. I hope so, Marcia. I'm working hard at it. I have 5 max sessions this year, so we'll see. At least one of them will be good, I hope. So we can just go through the variations to see which one works best. I kind of like that one the best. So there you go. And I really don't like this cloud here, but it's fine. The point is that we were able to completely change the aspect ratio of this image, and we still kept the important things, and we still sort of kept the same feeling of the original the original landscape photo, because the original landscape photo had the tree on the top left and it had the tower on the right. So it still has the same feel, but it's now in a vertical style. So let me close these files. How much time do I have? We have 4 minutes. I can definitely show you guys some stuff in 4 minutes. Let me close all this stuff here. And then I'll open up this image. Another cool thing about generative fill is that you can use it to change backgrounds. So we have this guy here, and then I can just make a selection around the street here, go around his arm. It's okay if I go a little bit inside of his the edges there of his body, that's fine. And then make this selection here. And instead of having a street there and that couple walking, I can just type in Venetian Canal, click on generate, and hopefully we'll get a Venetian Canal. Just give it a second here. And there you go. We got a Venetian Canal. The cool thing about this is that it has reflections and all of that. And I'm noticing the other variations that is definitely not Venetian Canal. So the only one that really works is this one. I really like it. I just don't like the reflection here. So what I recommend when you don't like something, just like a part of the generation, just regenerate that part again and see if you get a better result. So let's give it a try and see what happens. And there you go. I think that looks much better. And yeah, all the variations look much better. So it's between, yeah, that one, I like that one the best. So now we have this guy walking in front of a Venetian canal. Another thing that you can do is you can click on select subject. In Photoshop will use, of course, AI to select the subject. But if you click on select inverse, now you have the background selected. And now you can give it a completely different background. For example, Venetian canals, canal. We'll just go with Venetian Canal. Same prompt, just to see what happens. So now instead of having just the street selected, now we're going to select everything else, and maybe it'll put him in Venice. We'll see. Yeah, right. The fork might show up in the canal. That'd be really funny. Oh yeah, fork in his hand. Let's try it. Oh my God, he's literally in a Venetian canal. I mean, there you go. He's walking through the water. I kind of like that. This looks very realistic, actually. How about walking next to a Venetian canal? Maybe that's what we need. And then we'll put a fork in his hand to finalize, to end the stream. Come on. Okay, he's still walking in the canal, but just because of a popular demand, we're gonna type in fork in hand, and hopefully that gives him a fork in hand. Oh, he's got several, not necessarily like kind of forks we were looking for, but I guess they're forks. That one's pointing. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me in this Firefly Masterclass. Once again, my name is Jesús Ramirez. I look forward to seeing you on my next Adobe live stream. Make sure you stay tuned in. There's more streamers coming on after me. Also, make sure you tune into Adobe Max Online next week. And if you're going to be there, don't feel free to come up and say hi. I would love to see you in person. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.